Welcome to the Election 2022 edition of Team Rayceen Forum. I'm Erin Palmer, Team Rayceen co-host and moderator. For this edition of Team Rayceen Forum, I'm joined by special panelist, Rayceen Pendarvis. Hi, Rayceen.
Hi, greetings and salutations all.
I am also joined by our distinguished panel. Welcome, everyone. I'd love for everyone to introduce themselves. Let's start with Gordon.
Sure. Thank you, Erin. Hello, everyone. My name is Gordon Fletcher. I'm happy to serve as a three-term ANC commissioner in the North Michigan Park community of Ward 5. I'm also the Ward 5 Democrats chairman, and I'm the new executive director for the Commission on Poverty for the District of Columbia, focusing to reduce poverty in DC by 50% over the next 4 years. So I'm looking forward to this, very amazing, thoughtful discussion with great panelists. And, thank you so much for being here. It's a great opportunity. Thank you again.
Thank you, Gordon. Sherman, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, hello. Good day to everyone, and thanks for having me on. My name is Sherman Hardy. I am an Air Force veteran and an activist and advocate here in Prince George's County, Maryland. I'm all about the people business, so I appreciate it, and I look forward to having this discussion with you all.
Thank you so much. Joe, please go ahead.
Good morning. I'm Jose or Joe Barrios. Either one is good. I'm the president of the DC Latino Caucus. I've been doing that for a couple of years. Previously, I've served as the Latino committeeman to the Democratic State Committee. I've worked on the leadership team of DC for Democracy, a progressive organization. Have served as ANC commissioner for District 5B04 in Ward 5. And I'm also a co-founder of the Friends of Noyes Park, which is a charitable nonprofit in Ward 5.
Thank you so much. Reverend Wendy, please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for having me today. My name is Reverend Wendy Hamilton. I am a current candidate for ANC in the Great Ward 8, 8D06 to be specific, and a former congressional candidate. I did run for the delegate role in the recent primary. I'm a daytime truancy and attendance counselor at Brooklyn Middle School in Ward 5. Shout out to Ward 5. And I am excited to participate in this conversation today. Anything that has to do with making sure that our DC residents are supported electorally. So thank you for the invitation.
Thank you so much. Max, can you please introduce yourself?
Hello, Max Broad. I'm with DC Voters for Animals. We're working to lift up the policies and politicians doing the most for animals. And I am just such a wonk for local politics. I love folks who are engaging in the democratic process, and just so excited to be amongst so many people who are thoughtful in this process on this panel today.
Thank you. Jatarius, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jatarius Frazier. I am a proud Ward 5 resident, and I am currently the president of the Capitol Stonewall Democrats, and as well as a member of the DC Democratic Party and Democratic State Committee, rather. And I am the former vice president for the DC Young Democrats here in the district as well. And I'm excited about today's discussion.
This is a truly incredible panel full of a lot of knowledge. So let's get started. Elections are currently underway, including absentee, mail-in voting, early in-person voting. Tuesday, November 8th is Election Day in all 50 states, the U.S. territories, and the District of Columbia. What are some of the races that you are closely watching?
I guess I'll start, in Ward 5, we have a school board race that is pretty competitive at this time with three candidates, two of them that I've met, two that I know fairly well, and Carissa Beatty and Robert Henderson. And I think it's going to be a really interesting race because it's an open seat in Ward 5, and schools are a very important part of Ward 5. And who is going to be advocating on behalf of public schools, charter schools is going to be very important. So I think that's a race. And I think everyone here can attest that the at-large race is pretty competitive as well. The fact that, we have a lot of Ward 5 residents here, and we have 2 Ward 5 residents, sitting council members running for that office, but the seat is very competitive. I think there are a lot of great and qualified candidates to look for. And then shameless plug, my ANC race, I'm running for a 4th term, and I have an opponent. And so hopefully for myself, hoping to be victorious in that as well. So those are some of the races that I'm looking at come next Tuesday.
Thank you so much, Gordon. It's really important to note the role of advisory neighborhood commissioners and the State Board of Education in these down ballot races that sometimes go overlooked. Reverend Wendy, what races are you paying attention to, particularly as an ANC candidate?
So can we talk nationally first and then locally?
Sure. Of course. I love it.
I'm paying attention. Well, as a former congressional candidate, I'm really paying attention to the House and the different races across the country and the possibility of us retaining the House. I think that is incredibly important, certainly as it pertains to our goal of DC statehood eventually, but just saving democracy in general. I am very hopeful and prayerful watching both the House and the Senate. The Senate, I feel a little bit more comfortable about, but the House is making me a nervous wreck. Now, bringing it back locally, I think I'm watching all of the ANC races, mine as well. I too have a challenger, but I also am looking at and hopeful about turnout. I was really impressed with the turnout during the primary, even though the race didn't go the way I wanted it to for me. But I think for DC, it was a great opportunity because of the permanent mail-in ballots and everyone getting something mailed in. We had one of the highest turnouts we've had, in the history of DC elections. So that lets me know DC residents are involved, they are engaged, and I'm hoping that carries over into the general election. So that's something I'm also excited about, is turnout across all the races.
That's a really great point.
And I just want to bring home to that point, because that's exactly where I was going to go with my statement. Here in Prince George's County, we don't have to too much worry about, our general elections, because we are such a heavily blue county within this bluish state. But most importantly, I've definitely been looking forward to some of the Senate races, because that's something that we have to hold on to. The congressional and the House, it's fairly easy for that to slip away due to gerrymandering and so many other influences, that has been taking place over the years. But the Senate, we have 50-50 right now. And our illustrious Vice President, Kamala Harris, is the tiebreaker. So we are afforded that ability and that so far, but it just takes one of the Senate races to crumble. And we're going to be in some trouble, because now you're going to have those, the minority leader who's going to take over, and what their plans are. It's going to be Hunter Biden and then a whole bunch of other stuff. So Nevada, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Arizona, I implore you have to get out there and vote, because even in Nevada, it's an even race for the Senate candidate. And Lexalt, who is, one of the Trumpers, he has spilled some very, some crazy things. And also his campaign has supported this Twitter that, was talking about anti-women, anti-Jew, anti-LGBT and trans things. So, it's important, at the upper level that we protect our rights and as average citizens. And of course, the race between Warnock and Walker, that's going to be a tight one as well. So Georgia and Stacey Abrams, that we need you all to get out there and vote, because it's very important. But I also want to come back locally before I talk about anything else, because the trick of the enemy is happening right here in my very own beloved state of Maryland, where we have Jeff Warner, who is running as a Republican, is has the signs across Maryland in blue, and he also has a sign that says Democrats for Jeff Warner, and he's running for Congress. So you have to be watchful and pay attention, because don't just vote for people who say they're doing X, Y, and Z. Make sure that their principles aligns with that. And thank you.
I would also add, I am very concerned about the federal races also. Certainly there's the issue of statehood that always hangs in the balance, but additionally, Congress does have oversight over essentially everything that Washington, D.C. does, including legislation passed by the D.C. Council. Recently, the council passed a non-citizen voting bill, which would allow residents, regardless of their citizenship status, who have been in the district for more than 30 days, to vote in local-only elections for mayor, council races, ANCs, and so on. And the Republican leadership has already made clear that if they retain the majority, they intend to once again use our immigrant communities as political pawns in their little games. And so we are certainly very concerned, about that, as well as the other progressive legislation that DC has passed recently and will continue to pass in the future. On the local level, yes, the at-large race is of extreme interest to me personally, and I'm sure to a lot of other people. And at the local level, at the ANC level, we do have some prominent Latinos who are part of our caucus running for ANC, particularly James Tondaric in Ward 3, and Patricia Aguino, who's a board member in Ward 6. And so we're very excited to be supporting their candidacies and see an increase in Latino representation on our ANC bodies.
Thank you so much, Joe. We had Patricia on a panel a while back, a women candidate panel, and she was quite wonderful.
Great.
Jatarius, were you about to say something?
Thank you. Yes, I appreciate that. Just kind of to dovetail on the end of what Joe was saying, yeah, we do have a lot of important races. And additionally, I think one of the gentlemen mentioned earlier about the wave of anti-LGBTQ legislation that we're seeing across the country. And that just further highlights really a lot of the issues that we think are big tent issues are a lot of the areas where we come together. For example, Republicans right now are attacking trans youth. They're attacking LGBTQ people, and they're also attacking women, voter rights. And so there's so many fronts. And I hope that in the closing days, and I think that President Obama is doing a good job of this, as well as some other surrogates that are out. But I think it's really important that we kind of talk about how united our issues, or how united of a front that we need to have to really beat back a lot of the legislation that has been proposed and that will be proposed if we know that if Republicans are able to take the Senate or the House, it's dangerous across the country, but as has been stated, particularly dangerous for us here in DC, because so much of what we do does depend on federal oversight. And it would just be really unfortunate to see so much of the work that has gone into the fight for statehood just be rolled back, or us to have to kind of rejig our strategies altogether because you have a group of people that are now that have taken office that have no purpose or vision for serving the people, only for obstructing.
Yes, super important. Well, let's talk a little bit about local procedures. In the District of Columbia, as we've been talking about, other than a handful of State Board of Education and some advisory neighborhood commission races, the main competitive general election race is the at-large DC Council race, where we have 2 seats up for grabs for this citywide position, with most Democratic Party nominees either running unopposed or very likely to win their seat. Is it time to reevaluate our election procedures? Should DC have open primaries or ranked choice voting or other procedural changes? I'd love to open it up to the panel for a discussion on our election procedures, and maybe Joe can start us off because I know the Latino caucus has some views on this.
Yeah, some very strong views. We definitely think there's a moment for improving how democracy works in DC. The caucus has strongly endorsed ranked choice voting and continues to do so. You have elections where people can squeak into public office with a bare plurality of 17% of the vote, which is extremely unrepresentative of the communities that they're purporting to serve. And so we think that something like ranked choice voting gives more voice to more candidates, so that you don't have to make decisions about, well, this candidate is the most likely to win. You can state your preferences, and it requires candidates to reach out to a wider group of people, including people who have not traditionally been engaged, like our immigrant communities, so that they can get those ranked choices to get them past the threshold that they need in order to win. On the part of the at-large race, I think there's some farce around this idea that you have to have a non-Democrat running for some of these seats. So what ends up happening is people with deep connections to the Democratic Party end up declaring themselves as independent and then running as independents in name only for these seats. And so, I really don't think that, that kind of fiction is useful in our politics. And certainly, I mean, we are represented by a small number of council members when you look at the total population of the city. I mean, we have more population than Vermont and Wyoming, and yet, we have this relatively small cadre of people making very important decisions for our city. We think there should be more positions available open for people to run for, so that we can, again, increase the amount of representation from our different communities.
Those are great points. I think one of the aspects of ranked choice voting that I find particularly appealing is that it motivates coalition building and a different structure for how people run their campaigns. But I know that ranked choice voting is not universally supported, and there's some division among the Democratic Party. Jatarius, can you tell us about how you view ranked choice voting and some of the challenges that you think it might present?
Sure. I will start off by saying that I'm a proponent of ranked choice voting. However, I am not a proponent of ranked choice voting for DC, because throughout conversations over the past, I'd say 2 years, throughout conversations I've had with many residents, particularly residents of color and Native residents, Native Washingtonians, there is still some skepticism, and it's well articulated skepticism. This is not these are not people that are approaching me that are ignorant of the process or that are not civically engaged. They are informed, and they do not feel that this is the best system for them. And so in the course of that conversation, in the course of those conversations, I've asked about alternatives. And one of the alternatives that seems to have broad consensus is expanding the council. And I think that, I think that is because what we is essentially a modified way, but to the voting in elections here in the city for decades. I want Democrats and progressives together, because this is something that the Democratic Party has spoken out against. I would like for us, it seems like this is a zero-sum game, and I would like for both sides to find some way that we can come together and work together that really benefits DC residents by allowing them to exercise more votes to just expand democracy. And that's just my view on it.
Reverend Wendy, can you share your views on ranked choice voting?
Certainly, I'm very much pro ranked choice voting. Many people know that, as well as open primaries. I think the more people in the process, the better, and having the opportunity to do that. And particularly when it comes to independence and the fact that the independent party is growing nationally faster than the other two high-ranking parties, Republican and Democrat. And we have a number of independent voters in DC who feel left out of the process during the primaries. And I think that they deserve to have a voice as well. And so I will always be in support of a system that engages more people elect or mentioned. And hi, Jatarius, I haven't seen you forever. Hi. That when he talked about the notion of people not fully, understanding the process, I think that's where we need to spend a lot more time, regardless of whether we go with ranked choice voting, expanding the council, anything. Voter education is key. And I think that that's important, and that much more of our resources and our time here in DC should be dedicated to educating our voters, because the more education, the more outreach we do, the more involved they feel in the process. And so for me, I'm big supporter of both systems, but also, and above that, a bigger supporter of continual voter outreach and education until we get to the place where we see the best results. The at-large race does kind of symbolize like a ranked choice voting opportunity, because you do get to pick two, which really, made me real confused to see people discouraging people from picking two. people talking about, well, just pick this person and write somebody else in, or don't even do it at all. Like, hold on, that's now if you're for democracy and you're for, engaging in this process, and some of you all have even talked about being in support of these ranked choice voting, then why are you, attempting to suppress votes, in my opinion, by recommending that people not even participate in what is the closest to ranked choice voting we have in DC in this moment? So that was a little concerning for me. But at the end of the day, voter education, voter outreach, no matter what we decide to do.
Thank you, Reverend Wendy. Sherman, do you have views on electoral procedures in Maryland? What's happening locally where you are?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I'll just say this in the generality, because what I'm hearing is people saying, as opposition to it, or not necessarily opposition, but just a counter to ranked choice voting is, more representation. I believe that people need more representation regardless, but the mechanism in which the way we do it is, the whole concept behind this, because, we can add 30 more seats to any kind of body of government, but it's who we put in those seats that's, that becomes the problem. So, if you have a system that says, okay, well, you get to pick, your first three choices, and, we line them up based upon, how many people are able to garner the most votes, and the second person goes under that, then I think that's more democratic than picking someone at 17% of the vote, when we already have a low turnout across the country. In Maryland, and specifically within Prince George's County, I think that we should move closer to something similar to this, because we're such a heavily blue state and blue and county, to whereas the group of persons that you get running for certain positions, you need to be able to have that choice, so that it's an opportunity for all. And like the Reverend says, I do agree with open primaries. I believe that everybody should be registered at the ages 18 automatically, in order to further our democratic process. So this is just an idea that they will work hand in hand, because now you get to select. It doesn't matter what party someone's in. We're going to be voting for people over party.
Thank you. Max, do you have any views on electoral procedures and perhaps how that influences animal issues and animal rights?
Just broadly in DC, our general elections are largely a joke, right? When the politician is chosen in the primary process, who's pretty much a landslide to win in the general election, it kind of defeats the purpose of the general election. So I love this thinking about how can we perform, how can we do better, how can we give people a better chance. I'm really grateful that Jatari has provided the counter narrative to ranked choice voting. And I was like blown away when I heard that, because I thought everybody would love ranked choice voting. And it is a totally valid perspective that people are skeptical about the democratic process and getting muddled up. I think we need to listen and respond to those concerns. But also, I definitely think we need to grow with our elections to make sure that people are having their voices heard. Especially, I was surprised people who are resistant to ranked choice voting are some of the same people who are complaining about having to vote for the lesser of two evils. No, ranked choice voting gives us an opportunity to not have to vote for the rest of the lesser of two evils, to vote for the people who we love, who is our first pick, even if we don't feel like they're a number one slot to win. So we love that about ranked choice voting. And, I tip my hat to Councilmember Christina Henderson for all the work that she's put into this. And, I know she's gotten a lot of pushback for it, but it's good that we're at least having the conversation right now.
Thank you. So for our final topic, let's hear your predictions. Do you see any close call races, any potential upsets? Gordon, before we move on.
Okay, it's okay if I talk about this. Okay, thank you. I wanted to get an opportunity to give my opinion on that. As chair of the Ward 5 Democrats, ranked choice voting has been a very controversial topic that many individuals have talked about. And the Democratic Party has issued their position on ranked choice voting, opposing it. However, I teach about this, and to students at AU, American University Law School, and the School of Public Affairs, I think ranked choice voting has a place in our political process in DC. However, one of the issues for me personally with ranked choice voting, and I think Jatarius and Max and others alluded to this, was the fact that the educational piece. As I teach students about it, they say, Professor Fletcher, this sounds like a great system. However, what about those that may not understand it? You know, our seniors, our functionally illiterate, our marginalized communities. Let's just make sure we can provide education to those vulnerable populations. And personally, I'll be supportive of ranked choice voting, just with that caveat about the education piece beforehand and not after the fact. I think if we do that, I think ranked choice voting has a place in the District of Columbia. Beyond that, I do support the idea of expanding the council. I think with a population, a diverse population of District of Columbia, we have to have diverse individuals representing us on the council. You know, Joe just talked about the bill that was passed recently allowing immigrants, I'm an immigrant myself, you know, the right to vote in the District of Columbia. This is important. So I think expanding the council would go a long way to that. And then lastly, open primaries, I support that as well. Just wanted to give my 2 cents. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. This is such a robust discussion. I am reluctant to move us along, but in the interest of time, I'd love to hear panelists' predictions about any races they think might be a close call or an upset or something surprising. And Reverend Wendy, Joe, go ahead.
In the at-large, which has been competitively fought, but I think that the power of incumbency or party affiliation does matter. So I think Anita Bonds will easily win one of the seats as the Democrat who's running. And I think Alyssa Silverman pulls it off, for the other seat. She's got a tremendous amount of support, people on the ground, all the labor unions that have endorsed her, and she has a solid track record with things like paid family leave, and representing working families. So I think in the end that pulls a victory for her.
Any other predictions on the at-large race?
I'll chime in and talk about this one. Now, I want to give credit to all the candidates. As a former candidate, Erin, Reverend Wendy, you know what this is like every day, day and night, no matter what's going on, you got to be out there. So shout out to all the candidates in the at-large race, first and foremost. Now, with that being said, as a strong Democrat, I do believe that Anita Bonds will, handedly win. I think she, right underneath, Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, good or bad, folks are going to support Anita Bonds, right? And I'm going to support Anita Bonds because she's a Democrat and I'm the Ward 5 Democrats chairman. Now, I think that it does come down to Kenya McDuffie and Alyssa Silverman. Alyssa Silverman has done great work. As Joe talked about, paid family leave, me being an employee of DOES, support that all the way. Kenya McDuffie, the Baby Bonds program, the NAIR Act, as well as what he's done for small businesses. I think that should not go on, unnoticed as well. So I think it's going to come down to Alyssa and Kenya for that second seat. I'm not going to say which one because I think it's going to come down to the wire, but I do believe it's going to be one of those two for the second seat.
Rayceen, do you have any predictions?
I just hope whoever wins holds the beliefs of the people to make the world a better place, the city a better place, on the national level or the local level. I'm for anybody who will make anybody feel that their voices are being heard.
Thank you. Sherman and Reverend Wendy, any predictions on the national landscape about where things will land?
My crystal ball has broke, so I'm not going to be making any predictions today. But one thing I can predict is that when you don't vote, they win. So I need you all to get out there, Nevada, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Arizona, and even in Florida, because Florida is now switched, from purplish to reddish. They have 270,000 more registered Republicans are now in Florida than Democrats. And it's important. In my hometown is Miami, Florida, which has now shifted from bluish to purplish to now going red. So, as much as it pains me to use the voice of Hillary Clinton, be practical about it. This is our democracy, which is at stake, and we can't take it lightly. It is very important. It is extremely important that we not go back to the antebellum days. So let's get out there, let's vote, and let's vote with your conscience. That's all I can say.
Well, I am praying daily for a national blue wave to overtake the country. My hope is that the polls are underestimating a lot of the energy that's happening in our young people. The numbers are looking really good early vote wise as far as they're concerned. And then, you know, we women are not having it. And so the numbers of women that have registered to vote across the board is astronomical. And they're looking at the early turnout numbers from 2020. We're almost exceeding those nationally, which is amazing because 2020 was a general election. This is a midterm, and we are reaching general election numbers in this particular midterm. So I am excited and hopeful for that to happen on a national level. I think we're tracking toward that. So that's my hope and my prayer, because at this point, the Democratic Party seems to be the same party. And the ones who, at least, though not perfect, the Democratic Party at least seems to be the party who is focused on what is necessary, and that is taking care of the needs of the people. And so that is my hope. Now, I'm going to go against the whole panel on the local at-large race, and I'm going to say there's going to be an upset, and the first timers, Kareem Marshall and Graham McLaughlin, are going to win the at-large race and shake DC up. Now, you know I'm saying that because as a first-time candidate, I have a lot of love for what it takes to put yourself out there against some long-term incumbents. You know what I'm saying? So they already had a special place in my heart. But I too, like Rayceen, as long as you're in that office for the right reason, as long as you are motivated to serve the residents of DC, not because you've been there and you've been doing it, but because it's in your heart to do, and because we deserve it. And our city's been going through a lot, and we deserve to have representation that is going to take us to the place we need to be in order for statehood to look really, really good on us. So those are my predictions: a blue wave and first-timer upsets on the local. Yeah.
Erin, could I have one comment on the national race from a Latino perspective?
Of course.
Something to me of grave concern is that the Democratic Party appears to be losing a substantial portion of the Latino vote. Okay, and that's the elephant in the room that really has not been addressed. I speak from personal experience. I have a sister that lives in Miami-Dade in the Cuban community and there. And I have seen her go from being a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat and a twice Obama voter to the other side, much to my dismay and disappointment and attempt to convince otherwise. And so I think, once the races are all and done, we need to look at places like that, places like South Texas, and see how the Democratic needs to improve its messaging on immigration, on reform, okay, on economic opportunity for small business. I think these are some of the places where the Dems are stumbling when it comes to this community. I think we're still really strong on healthcare. We're really strong on abortion in the Latino community, but there are other places where we need to reconnect with that party, with that community. And part of it is not parachuting in a couple of months before the election and saying, hey, we're Democrats, come and vote for us. Ain't gonna work when the other side has been building those grassroots for years. We need to get much better about that. And if we want to see an enduring Democratic majority in the House and the Senate, we need to pay attention to what's happening in the Latino community.
Those are great
Jump
remarks.
off. And that's what I was alluding to. So, thank you so much for bringing that point to it when I was talking about trends. And I just want to say it's not just the Latino population, it's, a few other immigration populations because, okay, so a little known secret, I ran for county executive in Prince George's County. And while campaigning, I did speak to, a lot of people, and some of the Asian people that I was speaking to say that they were looking to leave the Democratic Party because they don't feel like, we have been addressing their needs and a lot of concerns, like you were saying, is crime, is immigration, it's economic prosperity. They tend to lean a little more on the conservative side with that, and our party has, shifted away from that. So, yes, we do need to pay a lot of attention to those trends.
Thank you
If
so
I
much.
may chime in.
Go ahead.
No, just really quick. If I may chime in, yes, I think Democrats are not as good as messaging on messaging as progressives and independents and Republicans. However, I will say, coming from Texas, coming from Houston to the most diverse city, I think, in the country, it is very, very hard for the Democrats to message to not a big tent, but a huge tent party. And the amount of resources that it takes to really kind of stay continuously connected and engaged with all these various communities, that takes a lot of money. And it's much easier when on the opposite side of that, you have Republicans that come out and say, you know what? There are men in the women's restrooms, and Democrats always have to come out and say, okay, this is how hard we've been working for you for the past 10 years. And Republicans can just come out within that month or 2 or 3 months before an election with fear tactics. And Democrats going to take, or I want to see us on the offense earlier and more often when it comes to a lot of the falsehoods and just outright lies that Republicans are passing off. Because being from a small town in Texas, let me tell you, my family in the evenings, we were watching Fox News. We weren't watching MSNBC or the local news channels and whatnot that kind of carry water for Fox. And so I just want to point out how hard it is from the campaign side to message to all these various constituencies in these like 2 and 4 year segments.
Thank you so much, Jatarius, and thank you to our panelists. Before we close out, I'd love for everyone to share their contact information, how people can learn more about you, website, social media, the best way to get involved and continue engagement with the groups that you're working with. This is a very prominent and involved panel, and people would love to get engaged with what you're working on. So let's start with Gordon, if you can share how people can get in touch with you and learn more.
Sure. Erin, thank you again. Great host. Appreciate the entire panel. Team Rayceen, appreciate you as well very much. When it comes to me, you can reach out to me via email. My email address is gafletcher, FLETCHER, the number 2 @gmail.com. Social media, Gordon Fletcher Esquire, IG, Gordon Andrew Fletcher. And again, just reach out to me. I'm always here. I'm a servant. Any way I can help the community, I appreciate that. And, my wife and I were very excited because we're expecting our first child. And just want to say, we had a miscarriage last December, and sometimes those stories don't go told. But I also just want to make that known as well. Whatever you're going through, make sure when you feel ready, talk to somebody about it, because you never know who is going through a similar situation and could use your encouragement. So my wife and I were expecting a baby girl December 4th. We're very excited about that.
Thank you, Gordon. Sherman, if you could let people know how to reach you, how to learn more about you.
Yes, all of my social handles are at Hardy, the number 4 PG. And you can also reach me at Sherman@hardyforpg.com. Or just search Sherman Hardy, something should pull up. But I just want to say best wishes to all of the candidates on the call and to all the elected officials. Keep doing the people's business. I appreciate you all. We are enough. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Joe, let us know how people can get involved with the Latino Caucus and some of the efforts you are working on.
Sure. So I encourage anybody who is interested in working to promote the political participation and empowerment of Latinos to join us, no matter where you are. So you can find us at www.dclatinocaucus.org. Our social media, you can find us as DC Latino Caucus on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We look forward to seeing you.
Thank you so much. Reverend Wendy, how can people support your Advisory Neighborhood Commission campaign and learn more about you?
You can go to my website, and that's revwendyhamilton.com. And on my website, there is a section that shows for ANC and talks all about the ANC race. I'm very excited about that. So you can support me in that way. And I'm on all social media. LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. They got me dancing over there. Twitter. Twitter is at RevWendy3, and everything else is at RevWendyHamilton. So please look me up and help support, and I appreciate it. Thank you, Rayceen. Thank you for the platform that you provide for these important discussions. So I appreciate the invitation, being able to participate in the work that you do. Please keep it up.
Thank you. Max, can you tell us more about how to learn about DC Voters for Animals and some of your efforts?
Yeah, check out dcvfa.com, sign up for our newsletter, get involved with our social media to help us address the immensely cruel and environmentally polluting fur industry, to help us prevent bird collisions from, our wildlife or just colliding into buildings left and right, and, help us pass legislation that would address issues like dog fighting and puppy mills and these terrible ways that, animals are raised as just consumer products. So, of course, we're concerned about a lot more than that. And, as an organization that's focused on local DC politics, we're the at-large race we got behind Alyssa Silverman and Graham McLaughlin. I think I have to say that Joe's prediction is probably going to be how it plays out. I do see Alyssa Silverman being, somebody who has run 2 successful at-large elections before, and that tipping the hat in her favor. But I think the thing that we were most excited about this year that was really fun and new for us was we got behind some ANC elections. And if you want me to make a prediction, one prediction I'm definitely calling on is Rev. Wendy Hamilton winning in 8D06. So, we had lots of fun, getting involved with local, the local is where it's at, right? So ANC commissioners are important. I hope people are getting up to speed on, who's representing them and what those races look like.
Thank you so much. Jatarius, can you give us the last word from our panelists in terms of how people can learn more about you and what you're working on?
Yes, thank you so much, Erin and Rayceen and Team Rayceen for facilitating this wonderful discussion today ahead of next week's election. Well, it's already taking place. I would like to let you all know that once again, my social media handle, my name is Jatarius Frazier, and I am the president of Capitol Stonewall Democrats. And my social media handle is Jatarius NDC. That's Jatarius INDC. And I would like to invite you all to become more engaged and more active if you aren't already with the Capitol Stonewall Democrats. In addition to the advocacy work that we do, we also go out and campaign for LGBTQ candidates in DC, as well as Virginia, Maryland, and across the country when time and opportunity presents itself. And you can keep up with us at Stonewall Dems 51. Once again, that's Stonewall Dems at 51, and that's all of our social media handles. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I'm Erin Palmer. You can find me primarily on Twitter at Erin Palmer DC. And to learn more about Rayceen, you can go to rayceen.com. Rayceen, can you give us the last word?
As you can see, the passion from all of our panelists. I thank you all for being in service. It is very hard. It is never easy. But when you are called, you have to stand and do the work. So many times people run for political offices in the name of pride and ego and position, and don't understand the passion behind it, the dedication, that it is not about a title, it is about doing the work. We are living in a time where folks are trying to take rights away from everyone, from the national level to the local level. For those who do not vote, it is a disservice. You dishonor spirit, you dishonor your ancestors, you dishonor the legacy of voting and why voting matters. I don't care who you vote for. Get out and vote. It is important that if you are not one of those who believe in standing in lines on election day, vote early. And to those who will win and have these positions and take these elections and take on the new role of leading folks into the new era, whatever that may look like, the new era of change. I like to see personally elections across the country be a national day where you're off, where you don't have to worry about, oh, I've got to go work. I've got to pick up the kids. I got to get out and vote. Some folks don't vote early for whatever reason, but I'd love to see the day when voting is a national day where everyone is off, where you just go to the polls. You don't have to worry about going to work, where it's a holiday, election day. And that's what I'd like to see. That's the future that I'd like to see across the country, across the world. But vote now, vote tomorrow, vote forever, and get involved in the process. Get involved. Take folks to the polls. Ask your neighbors, are you going? Take them. Reach out to your seniors. Reach out to those who are disabled and can't get around like they would like to. Find out how they're going. Reach out to them and be that bridge that bridges those. You can make a change. It's very simple. You are the change. So if you're not changing or doing the work, shame on you. But vote, everybody. And I thank you all. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much for that, Rayceen, and thank you to our panelists. Viewers, please follow Team Rayceen on social media, subscribe to the Team Rayceen YouTube channel, and thank you for watching.